Hello and welcome to Game Soup with Kayla and Chloe. It's a game design podcast where we throw ideas in a pot and see what's cooking. I'm Kayla. How's it going, Chloe?
I'm good. I'm not getting enough hours at work, so consider buying something on our web store. No.
Okay, yeah, cool. Lots of good stuff there. You could get Mouse in the house,
Yeah.
picnics in the dungeon,
No, I
as
did
well as
have
games
something
we
to
didn't
actually
make on
talk
this
about rather than
podcast.
just plugging
Oh, okay,
myself.
yeah.
What we got news in Newcastle that there's going to be a new game store opening up, and I think it's like the fourth that's going to be in the middle of town, if it's going to be in the middle of town.
Damn.
And like, I know you're in London, so there's got to be like tons of them, but it's like, what is your local game store like?
That is a great
Do you have
question,
one?
because, yeah, I'm now having to think, what do I consider my local game store? Um, And I guess obviously there's a difference here that, like, I guess game stores are maybe more meaningful, not meaningful, but they're more a part of how I think you engage with a lot of games because you like, play Magic, which
Yeah.
is often like so because I don't play that. You can buy games from Badger Badger, but that's mainly a board game cafe. But I guess
Yeah.
that's where what I think of as the main gaming space I go to a lot. Um, like Orcs Nest is then the other one I go to most, but it feels weird to call something in central London my
Your
local
local.
game store when
Yeah.
I live in, like, all the way in southeast. I don't know, and if anyone listening to this knows if I'm wrong, I'd love to be corrected. I don't know if there is a game store in southeast London. Like Orcs Nest is central, Leisure Games is all the way over in like northwest or north, I think. There's like places around like Shepherd's Bush and stuff, but I don't know of any game stores in southeast London, unless I am wrong about that.
It's a problem that needs fixing either way.
Yeah, there used to be a Geek Retreat because my housemate used to work at it. In fact, no, Geek
Nice.
Retreat, maybe it still does exist. I can't remember. I've never been to a Geek Retreat.
They're okay. It's where we go to play Magic most of the time, mostly because it has the most amount of space compared
It's
to
probably,
Traveling Man, which does its events in the basement.
but it's just probably full of geeks, and I think they'd retreat from me because I'm intimidating and cool.
Yeah, sure, honey.
Wow, I'm very intimidating and cool. I just want to semi vent about something as
Go on
a
then.
kickstart. Why don't you? Before we do that, we do need to. This sounds very dramatic. I was just gonna say we need to talk about the wheelchair, and they're like, no, no, no. We just need to acknowledge that this is an audio podcast where our images are not even in our logo, and we don't post any videos because we don't record videos. We don't even have videos on when we're doing this.
No.
So, like, as people who listen to this are probably very unaware, I've started using a wheelchair recently. Just cool, like earlier in this year. And I bought a very cheap wheelchair because I don't have much money, and it has in many ways started to break down a bit, which was fine because it was kind of a trial run. I expected this would happen, but yeah, one issue is like I've had like the nut fall off of one of the brakes and had to replace that. And then I noticed my like left wheel was a little bent, so I've had to try and like get that so it's rolling straight again. And like I'm aware I shouldn't judge too much because like I also don't have all the nuts I came with, and I also am a little bent in places. But I just feel like I expected more from the
It's
wheelchair.
it's it's strained, it's forced.
Wow. I mean, those are just facts of what the problems are. Is describing it to someone when it's lost a nut and is a little bent, and then I was like, hmm.
It's like when a comedian does like a 5 minute speech just to do a one liner at the end. It's like, haha, I get it, but like, 5 minutes for that?
Well, oh, you don't understand comedy enough. You've got to go on the journey with people. That's why, as part of my stand-up set, I used to explain the like specific kind of like bottom surgery I had to set up a one-liner. but like people enjoyed the journey, and then that setup doubled as setup for another joke where I tested the audience's patience with how much they'd let me repeat one gag.
One episode of this, we're just going to have you do like type 5, and then that's just the entire episode.
This is the thing, because like this podcast, you can say a lot of things about it. I wouldn't describe it as tight.
No, it's a very loose podcast.
It's
You
very
get at least
loose
20 every
schedule.
week.
But this gag of me going like, well, look, I also don't come with all the nuts I started with, and am a little bent in places. That's when I thought about posting on Blue Sky, but I have way more Blue Sky followers than I ever had Twitter followers, which is a little weird. But it also means I often now, when I post like random things, do just get replies from people I'm not mutuals with at all, which is often fine. But it makes me have a moment of hesitation around jokes that are kind of revealing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not in a starter pack, so I don't get lots of random follows, but I don't have this problem. I personally think Blue Sky is just a good website to post jokes on.
Really? I like you're not struggling, from success and fame. That's been my
No.
experience of
Pass.
It's I don't know, maybe I will post it. It's also, I say it's like, oh, it's revealing. I don't care if people know I have a cunt. I'm pretty fine
What?
with that. That's not like a thing that feels like overly revealing. I guess it's worrying. And this was the follow-up of the joke I did in the stand-up thing of going like, I hope me, mentioning what junk I have for the purpose of a joke doesn't encourage random cis people to think that like, oh, so you can ask about this.
Yeah.
Which I guess the thing I thought a lot about as a stand-up, where it was like, I don't want to be telling trans jokes for cis people. And I don't think I think about that so much for my posting, because posting isn't comedy. Comedy is an art. Posting is an addiction.
It's like, I can never remember anyone at work's names, so I just have little nicknames in my head. But obviously, I can't say that to people because it's like I can't be calling. Oh yeah, the short lesbian,
Yeah.
the one who hates me. It's like nobody knows who that is. But like, I was saying this to
Chloe, we all hate you.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh.
Talking to a colleague the other day, and it's like, oh well, you're the gothy one, and I'm like, and obviously everyone has a one-word thing to remember me by in their head. Chloe.
Yeah. No, I get that. I also say my other thing with wheelchairs is happening again today. It's not only do I need to like dodge people just trying to come up and push me without my consent at all, but also they come from fucking out of nowhere. I'm like seeing people run across streets and pop out of manhole covers trying to give me a shove, and I'm like, I don't. Just ask first. I'm not like too proud to accept help. I just like a conversation.
Game where you're in a wheelchair and you have to avoid getting pushed by people that you don't know.
God. See, my actual opinion on this, and this may be a semi-controversial opinion, is I feel like when you are, having new experiences or whatever, you should just wait a bit of time and like kind of like actually process it a bit before you try and like turn it into art.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like as a comedian, I've seen people do things where I'm like, oh, you're not over the thing you're trying to turn into dark comedy.
Yeah.
And it's not good for your art, and it's also not great for you as a person, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I feel if I made a game about being in a wheelchair right now, I in like a year might look back at it and just cringe a little. I don't know. If I made a game for myself, that would be one thing. But if I specifically also trying to make it art and sell it, then I remember I had a friend once, a long time ago, who said she was of the opinion that like, trans people shouldn't be allowed to talk to the media until they've been out for 2 years. And I'm not sure. I'm not saying I need to use a wheelchair for 2 years before I can make a game I guess there's also a difference between making a game about something and a game featuring something.
Yeah, like I couldn't make this game, but you could.
But that's the thing, because the game we've pitched is it's about being like, so it's so much about, how people are seeing you as a wheelchair user, how like it's a lot of internal stuff that I think would be a terrible game for me to make right now, because it's like, I don't know if my feelings and thoughts are settled on that.
Yeah.
It's probably a fine game in 2 years or whatever, but also it feels like an overly personal autobiographical solo journaling game, and that's not the kind of game I'm interested in writing, really.
No,
At
I
all.
think it's a tactics game where you
Oh,
have
yeah?
to get from one side of a room to the other, and one like every other unit on the battlefield just wants to get to where they're going to, and they will just push you out of the way. And it's like you just want to look at the fruit in the supermarket, but people keep pushing you out of the way so they can get the apples.
So no, this is you're. I think you're slightly misunderstanding. Like, people trying to come up and push me.
Yeah,
The worst thing is they think they're doing me a favor. And to be fair, in a lot of these instances, someone came up and went, "Would you like a push?" In many of these occasions, I'd have probably said yes. I don't like someone just deciding
yeah, it's the
that
autonomy.
they know how to help. Yeah. But also, it just means like I'm in the middle of my stuff, and then I'm just shoved along with it. It's not blocking me from doing my things. It's just often like, oh, you can't be yanking people like that, man.
Yeah,
Can't be yanking. Um,
it's like I was at a
yeah.
convention the other day and I couldn't get in to see anything, and I'm just stood there with my stick, getting increasingly sore in the knees, and it's just like, please just let me lean on the table. I won't even look at things.
It is the weird thing I will say I've noticed, like starting using a wheelchair, having used a stick for a long time since, it's like it is like people do go more out of their way to help me. Yes, sometimes in this like patronizing way
Yeah,
that's ignoring my autonomy, but also like in other helpful ways. Like, I don't know, I notice people like make more of an effort to let me on and off a bus first. Often when a ramp isn't even down yet, and I have to be like, I can't get on this yet, you may as well go. Whereas like no one ever let me get on or off something first when I used a cane. Even though there, standing was a problem. Whereas in a wheelchair, just waiting around, not much effort, you
yeah.
know? Nothing's going wrong. But yeah, should we come up with a game soon before this turns into a disability podcast?
No, I think we've written a game about trying to go to the supermarket in a wheelchair. There's an
Yeah,
expansion where you got a walking stick and you have a limited energy pool.
I hate this game, I will say. I'm sure some people might like really like it. It's probably the kind of game that I feel if made, some people would go, "Oh my god, that's so cool and so personal."
Yeah, it's not a game either of us would ever play, but it's like
I'd
a game
hate the
for
idea.
woke. It's a game for liberal people who think they're woke to buy and be like, "Oh my god, yeah, no." So I got this cool game about like being in a wheelchair, and it's like you wouldn't have heard of it, but
It does. I don't know. At least maybe I'm being overly cynical, because I'm sure some hypothetical wheelchair using TTRPG designer might make a game like this, and they mean it in a really personal, heartfelt way. But my idea of making it and selling it specifically as a
yeah,
product, is like, I feel like what you are selling is like, I think you are selling empathy to people, or the idea of proof that you are good at empathy to people.
yeah.
It feels like a book you'd be selling on the basis of like, do you want to prove you're a good person? Why don't you buy this game about using a wheelchair?
It's like what's that
And
thing that right wing people always say is in everything, and it's like signaling, virtue signaling.
yeah, like I didn't. Yeah, it feels like its big audience would be like performative allies. Which maybe this is us being overly cynical, but like that's why I'm saying I specifically hate the idea of this game. If it was
It's like
made as a really sincere effort by someone else, I'd probably go, cool.
not for
It
me,
would
but
still just give me a sort of,
yeah. It's like
some
when
most
we were
hated.
first trying to do like a proper published version of Goblin Country when the Kickstarter was out or whatever. It's like I was really anxious about like, well, it's kind of about like being indigenous people on colonized land, and it's like, am I the person to tell this story? And it's like, but it's also about just being goblins trying to live your life. So
Yeah, like, sure, someone could apply a very allegorical lens to the game, but I don't think it invites that reading in. But
yeah,
also, I'm aware that being on the internet for a long time can make you afraid of. Afraid maybe sounds like I don't know, but you can start like applying the worst faith reading to your own work and
yeah,
feel the need to be defensive about that. And I often think it's unnecessary, but I also do get how you can see various situations have played out and go, this is a fear I need to pay attention to or whatever. So let's make a game that's not an overly personal and worthy game. Let's go to a
yeah.
random word generator unless
Least
you've
woke possible game. Okay, so it's a game where you're
Oh
asleep.
no!
You're asleep and you're in the
Ah!
dream worlds, and it's
And
about
in the
shared
dream world.
dreams.
And
And
then
it's like when you're creating your character, you have to like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Or like as a kid, what did I want to be when I grew up? And then it's like, what am I now? And you get like this mixed version of reality where like, oh yeah, I'm a barista, but like I'm a barista working on a rocket ship, and I have to apply my two skills of baristaing and rocket shippery to solve whatever problem I'm in. It's like you go through each other players' dream worlds and like solve their problems using these weird mixes of things.
yep, a very unworking. That's really fun. So I guess it's a dream hopping game, which is a space I have played in before or similar stuff.
Yeah.
But this one very explicitly dream hopping game, and also is seemingly a lot about like failed childhood ambition.
Yeah, I
Am I
think it's
wrong in
like
that?
are you wanting to stay in this wish fulfillment dream, or are you gonna wake up and like actually try to achieve these childhood dreams, or are you happy waking up and not having achieved these dreams?
Yeah, I think sometimes, obviously, like especially with childhood dreams,
Yeah. It's like I want to be a pop star. It's
having
like, okay.
like as an adult, you probably like look at it and go, you really don't, and it's okay that we found something else that makes us happy or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, are you okay, Chloe?
Thank you for listening to Game Soup.
Oh yeah, no.